Welcome again to The Perspective as we continue with our Summer Encore series. I do hope you're enjoying these programs that we're playing back to. Some of the ones that we picked out is just simply being superb this past year. And as we journey with some amazing guests, even this week, I want to take you back to a scripture because every week I've been giving you a scripture to hold on to. And today it's that familiar Psalm, Psalm 23 and verse 1, where David says, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." But then he jumps down into verse 3 where he says, "He restores my soul. He leads me beside still waters for his name's sake." Summertime is a great time for your soul to be restored. My prayer is that the program today is going to lift you up so that you can feel that connection with God and be reminded that He is with you, that He is your shepherd. Tara, son, thank you for being with us and for putting up with our poor sense of humor. We're both self-confessed control freaks. Welcome to the show.
I love it. Thank you, Mike and Mitch. It's such an honor to be with you guys. You're starting my day off with a lot of joy. So thanks for having me.
So talk to us about your problem with control. Yeah, I mean, you wrote a book on it, so you must have had to deal with it.
Well, and that's the thing is that, some people think you write a book on it and then you're perfect at it, but it's something I'm still struggling with today. I have always liked to say that I'm a type A, I'm a planner. I just really care. But I've realized that it's kind of my downfall that I really freak out over wanting to have everything in control. And that's why I wrote my book, Surrender Your Story.
So, Tara, we were laughing a bit. I've got a problem with eggs. Mike's got a thing with guitars. What about yourself? Is there anything that you just have to control?
Oh, I'll confess something else.
Yeah.
It was my
Yeah.
kids when they were driving. That just freaked me out, okay? When they were learning to drive. Okay, so I've just confessed it. There you go. Tara, we want to hear
Yeah.
your problem now.
I love the honesty here. I got to be super transparent. My biggest thing I'm currently struggling with is controlling over the way things look, especially my house, and feeling like if I don't get certain things done before someone comes over or before this gets done, then I'm a failure. And so my husband likes to call me out on it, let me tell you. But I have a hard time controlling or letting go of control of how things look. That's what I'm currently dealing with.
Right on. So, Tara, let me ask you, you've written a book on letting go of control and actually surrendering control of your life and the different timing of different events in your life and giving that over to God. So just tell us a bit about your story and how you've learned to do this.
I think I know this book was something that didn't just happen yesterday. It's been a theme that God has woven through my life since I was young. And I didn't really realize it until probably 10 years ago. There was a couple things, Mike and Mitch, that really came up in my life, like a chronic illness diagnosis out of nowhere when I was 14. And then also dropping out of college, dropping out of a biology degree and this whole plan that I had for my life that I thought was going to be good. All of these wrenches that God threw into my plans really pushed me to realize that I had this death grip. That's what I talk about in the book. I had this death grip on my life. And when God wanted to pivot things, I realized that I was unwilling to relent that. But through all of those things, God taught me that surrender is actually the way of life that we were created for. It's not natural to want to let go of that control, but it's actually where we find the most freedom and purpose that we're looking for.
It's interesting what you're talking about because, all kidding aside, we struggle with control. And a lot of times we live with the illusion that we can control our destiny. I want to take a
Right.
short break and I want you to tell us about your book, where people can find it, because it was just released, I think, March the 7th. Is that correct?
It was, yes. So surrender your story, subtitle Ditch the Myth of Control and Discover Freedom and Trusting God. I'm told that's convicting a lot of people from the subtitle alone, but you can find it on Amazon, christianbook.com, target.com, anywhere books are sold.
All right. I love the subtitle. About a year ago, I went through a health crisis, and somebody told me this. And I have a granddaughter, and they love the song. They love Frozen. That's what they're all about. But there's a song there called "Let It Go, Let It Go," and there was an older guy. He didn't know anything about that song, but he was saying to me, he said, "Mike, you have to let it go." And I've pondered that for over a year. What does it mean to let go of things and to loosen that death grip that we have? So speak into that whole issue. What are a few tips for listeners who are having a hard time surrendering And maybe we need to talk about how do we even recognize that we're control freaks?
Yeah, that's so good. I love laying the foundation there. I think the first thing that we need to acknowledge is that a lot of times we're afraid to surrender our lives to God because we're not sure what He can offer us. That surrender feels like we're letting go of the steering wheel. That when you watch movies, right, surrendering is that white flag. It feels like defeat, but it's this countercultural, meaning upside down thing that doesn't make sense at first in Christ. But we're found or we're told in God's word, and we find that it's where we find the most life abundant. And so, a couple things that I've found in my own life and I've talked to other people about, you might have a control problem if number one, circumstances don't go the way you thought and you end up distrusting God or you start to become angry with God. You also might have a control problem if you don't know how to rest well. And I'm convicting myself with this because if you feel like you need to strive, and hustle and you can't take a break because you feel like everything relies on you, that means you have a control problem, that you believe that life is up to you. And then also, you might have a control problem if patience is really hard for you. I know we all do, that you don't like waiting for God's timing, that it's easier to rush ahead and take the reins. And this is why I say this because this is an everyone problem. It's not just a me problem because I'm more type A. It's not just a problem for Mike or Mitch. It's a human problem. So if you're struggling with control today and letting that go, I think one of the first things that I would encourage you to do is get to know God. That's been life changing for me because I don't think we can surrender if we don't know who God is. When we're told to surrender to God, but maybe we feel like He's this far off God that doesn't love us, that He's mean, that He doesn't have good plans. If we don't know Him in a true relationship, then we can't possibly do that. I would also encourage you to make your plans. I say this in the book that it's okay to be a planner. It's okay to have your daily agenda. I think that's super helpful. But to know practically that if something ends up not happening or it doesn't go the way you thought in a day, that's a practical way to surrender and be like, okay, God, this is up to you. I'm going to pivot and I'm going to follow you instead. So it's really switching from a me centered agenda to a God centered agenda.
Well, so Tara, let me jump in and ask you, and because what I wonder, and maybe folks at home are wondering this, say, okay, well, we don't want to kind of have like a death grip on life, and I've got to go, go, go. I've got to make it all happen myself, and I appreciate you laying that out for people. At the same time, it's still a healthy thing to, and as you said, to make plans, to be forward thinking, to be hardworking, to do that sort of thing. Just in 30 seconds, give us some tips on how to have a healthy balance, approach life at a healthy pace. How do we do that?
I love that. We have a chapter talking about walking at God's pace. And this is really just implementing practically for me. I've seen a lot of healthy boundaries. So to not over schedule or not over plan, and to also consider your day and think, are these actions, even the simple things like, taking care of my family, doing this at work, going to this appointment, do they honor God? Are they going to help me rest and depend on Him? Because a lot of times we go about our schedules and we try to pile so much in out of our own strength when surrender really is depending on God. So just actively being aware of how much you're putting on your plate, because if it's too full, you're going to start operating out of self-sufficiency instead of depending on God's strength. That's probably a big key I would give you.
Darren, we're going to come back and talk more about that, this whole issue of control. But right now, our producer's in control. And she's saying we're going to take a quick break and then we're going to be right back. So watch this.
A couple months ago, I had done an announcement about I'm actually writing a book and follow along on the journey. And then I know I was kind of silent on here because, let's be honest, book writing, book editing, keeping up with my podcast, also a mom to my little baby boy, just so many things. But I've been looking forward to sharing more of my heart on this book for you because this book is all about trusting God with your story, trusting God with the twists and turns when life isn't happening the way you thought, and being able to surrender your life in open hands to God and not hold on so tight, because that's when we get disappointed and frustrated. When we hold on so tight instead of letting God have His will and His way in our lives. And so that's the heart of Surrender Your Story.
Well, today we're talking with Tara Sun and discussing her book, The Myth of Control, and how do we work through this, the desire to be in control. And so, Tara, in the last interview, you shared a little bit about how at one point you were in university pursuing a degree in biblical counseling. You had your health, but then both of those two things were removed from you. But from what it sounds like, you said those are part of God's plan. or rather, for those to be removed was part of God's plan for him to bring you to where you are now. My question is, how is it that God can sometimes remove good things from us and that be part of his plan? How do we make sense of that?
I think we have to redefine what good is. I've had to do that in my own life, and I know we all do
Hmm,
too.
good
A
point.
lot of times, my good does not line up with God's good, right? And I think what I've learned over the years and what God's word tells us is that God always does things for our good and his glory. And we have to realize that if God removes something, even if it's a good thing, even if it's not sinful, that he has something better. We're told in Ephesians 3 that he gives us immeasurably and abundantly more. So that's kind of a mindset shift I believe we all have to do. If we're kind of sad that God removes some good things, he always has something better.
I was smiling about one of the titles, one of your chapter titles, um, how we're taught to be independent as young people, claim your world, live out your dream. You can do it, whatever you want. And yet you say that independence is overrated. That's one of your chapter titles. Unpack that for me.
It's so fun because this is a chapter that everyone has been loving, and I think it's because it's so convicting and it's so backwards. But like I said, we're taught, you teach your children at a young age to be independent, to work hard, and that's good to an extent. But I think sometimes we take it too far and we'd be like, I'm independent, I'm enough without God. And so surrender means trusting God with all that you are. So we can't be independent apart from God. And so it's actually being dependent instead of self sufficient apart from Him. And so it's a message that's so countercultural to this world because we're taught to be it all, right? So I think that's such an important thing to acknowledge when we talk about surrender.
Also, Tara, the concept of God's will can be so confusing, but you really go in depth and explain it in the book. How do we figure out God's will for our lives and make decisions that give him glory? How do we do that without trying to take back control and say, well, I'll just glorify God in my own power? How do we do that?
Yeah, you nailed it. I love that you said that because we have to, when we surrender, be yielded to God's will. And that means making decisions that honor Him. And that's the age old question. And there's books that go into it, even more than my book. We do one chapter on God's will. But the first thing I want to tell you is if you don't know what God's will is for you, go to God's word. It's so simple. And I think knowing that He lays it out for us, we're told in Second Peter that He's given us everything we need for life. So we're not fumbling around in the dark. We have what we need to follow Him. And then also when it comes to making decisions, if you want to know if your decisions line up with God's word and they're surrendered and they're fully trusting God, just simple questions to ask. One of them is this a sin? Does God's word say that this would not glorify him? Then if it does, then don't do that thing. And then also seek counsel, pray about it. There's some really tangible things we can do to make sure that we're still surrendered in our decisions.
Well, so here's a follow-up question. You say if we want to know God's will, we should go to God's word. And now I've met a lot of
Yeah.
people, and maybe some people even watching at home, where we say, well, I could read the Bible, but I find it hard to focus. It's kind of slow. I kind of feel like God wants this. I mean, it sort of makes sense to me. And there's almost that passive, just, I sort of think God might do this. Why is it that you're still saying to people, actually, we have to go to God's word to know his will? How can that be?
Yeah, God's word is the same words that he spoke thousands of years ago. It's the same to us today. And I think a lot of times we're looking for that direction and we look to external circumstances, we look to our own knowledge, and it will only get us so far when God's word has it open to us. And so maybe also if you're intimidated of God's word, there's study Bibles, there's commentaries. It's not as intimidating as we think. We just need to come and even just ask God to help us read it because it's alive and it's active. We just need to taste and see, like David says. I think we're just kind of scared sometimes to even approach it.
Okay, I want to push back a little bit. Not all our viewers would agree with you. Not all of the viewers would agree even with me. Um, how do you? We're just talking to say your neighbor. How do you bring up the issue to point to them that they might have a control issue? How do you bridge
Yeah.
that gap?
Yeah. It's not easy, and it's not something that I even wanted to confront myself. But I think the biggest thing that I first would tell someone, like my neighbor or someone who maybe doesn't believe the same thing, is I just want to ask them if what they've been doing to control their life is getting the results that they want. So we're
Mm.
always looking for purpose and fulfillment and safety and security. I think that's why we control. So I just want to ask, I'm like, is that getting you where you want? Are you exhausted from trying to have everything together? And so opening up that conversation and then exposing them to the gospel and that Matthew 11 says that Jesus came to make us, lighter in our burdens, and that's through surrender. And so I think just opening up that conversation and offering something better in a gentle way may be helpful.
I love that. That's a great That's a great way of saying it. I'm going to borrow that as well. So thank you. You know, I'm smiling as well as you're chatting because you're a self-confessed type A. I'm wondering if maybe if you're a double A or a triple A, but all that aside, you talk that it's easy for us to forget that we're walking at God's pace. And sometimes we try to speed ahead. Sometimes we lag behind as well. But how do you find rhythm in your own life? How do you address it? You know, your natural propensity to push ahead and get it done.
I'm such a go-getter, like you said, and I love to be busy and I love to go at a fast pace and the more I think I can get done in a day, the better I feel accomplished. But that's where I have to push back on that because when I am so busy, I forget to be connected to God and I forget to walk at his pace. And so for me, I practically have to, like we talked about earlier, set boundaries. I have to not overload myself because the busier we are, the faster we go. And then also in the inverse, the slower we are, the more disconnected and lazy we could be about not being responsible about our lives. But I really have to be intentional about not doing too much because busyness is a huge distraction, I think, for all of us.
So, Tara, there's all these different things.
Good
You know, are we going too fast? Are we going too slow? There's so many of these different tensions. And I would love to get a copy of your book and just kind of work through that a little slower.
Yeah.
In a couple words, what is your hope for readers who read your book?
Oh, yeah, a couple words. My prayer, I keep telling people this, I pray that people will find freedom in letting go and letting God. Because whether we realize it or not, we're keeping ourselves in bondage by trying to control, and God offers a better way. So that's my hope.
So Tara, tell us the name of your book, where people can find it, and because it's just been released on March 7th, and we want to encourage people to get a copy of this book.
No, thank you so much. Today has been so fun. I would love for you guys to grab a copy of the book. Again, you can get on Amazon, Target.com, Christian Book, anywhere you get books. And it's called Surrender Your Story, subtitle Ditch the Myth of Control and Discover Freedom and Trust in God.
And here's what we're going to do to all our viewers. To the first 20 who write in, I'm going to send you a free copy of Tara's book. We want to encourage you to get a hold of that. So write to us today at theperspective.tv and we'll send you a copy of Tara's book. But you have to give us your address so we can mail it right to your place. Tara, thanks for being with us today. Love the conversation.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Tara.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much. It was a blessing.
All right. Have a great day.
You too.
Well, thanks for joining with us. We're going to be right back as Mitch and I unpack this conversation.
Many of us feel broken, like our lives are shattered beyond repair. But we all have a choice to throw away those broken pieces, or let the one who created us restore them.
You know, when we watch that clip about what is really redefined as we're broken people, have you ever thought about this, that if you have that controlling personality, it's because you're a broken person. You want to hold it all together. You want to make sure everybody's in a line with you. You might not agree with that, but hey, maybe it's time just to pull back and take a look inside and think about what Tara's been talking about, because God wants us to be whole people who can actually trust him with the pieces of our lives. Mitch, what's your thoughts on that, what I just said, and your takeaway from Tara?
Yeah, Mike, I think, well, you put it well, that it's a human temptation, really. It's part of the human nature to say, well, I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to handle things my way. And you're looking around, is anybody going to help me? You know what, who cares? I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it. And you know what? Maybe somebody would help me. I could do it better. And so there's all that, and there's all these things, but like Tara says, we can get burnt out, we can get frustrated, and it means we've got this death grip on life. And so I love what she's been sharing, and it's a challenge every day, really, to make that choice to say, I'm going to trust God with my situation.
So, you know, if I just build on what you're saying, is that we want to control things, but when we control things, we actually isolate ourselves and we push other people away.
Absolutely, and I think Tara picked up well on, there's a healthy amount of Okay, well, it's time to go to work. Well, try to find a job. Well, if the car's got all flat tires, maybe try to fix that. I mean, she's not saying don't do anything ever, but what she was saying was the general trajectory of my life and the whole course, I should be trusting that to God. And there's so much freedom that comes with that.
Freedom. And we desperately want freedom. And it's almost like an oxymoron. I can be free when I give up control and surrender each day to Jesus.
Absolutely.
That becomes a powerful concept. And so I'd like you folks today, as you're processing what we've been talking about, to say, am I really free inside? Do I get uptight? Do I have a desperate need to control? Why is that? Could it be that Jesus is saying, why don't you trust me? What Solomon once said, the wisest man who ever lived, he said, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. Let's think about it. I'm going to be back to teach God's word in just a minute. Have you ever thought about the fact that one of the reasons we like to control things is so that we can get what we think we want? And how do we know what it is that we really think we want? Many times it's because we've been looking at someone else and saying, if I could have this, if I could have that, then I'm going to have everything that I want. And then when we don't get it, guess what happens? We become disillusioned. Many times we can be angry with God. All this week we've been talking about the subject of envy. It's something very sinister. It's very subtle. It sneaks up on us. And we're not even aware oftentimes of how it shapes our emotions and defines our character. I want to read you something that I shared with you yesterday in case you missed the show. But a man named Shakespeare, remember him, William Shakespeare, grade 11, English? He called it the green sickness. Envy, the green sickness. Yeah, I'm green with envy. That's where it came from, I think. Sheridan, in his play The Critic, and I hope you're impressed that I'm rolling out these names, he said, there's not a passion so strongly rooted in the human heart as this. And then another English poet, Philip Bailey, said this, it's a coal that comes hissing hot from hell. Chuck Swindoll, the radio preacher, said it's a team member that plays on the same ball field with profanity, suspicion, and conceit. We've been reading from Psalm 73. Asaph is the writer of the psalm. He's also a worship leader. He wrote 11 or 12 of the Psalms that are recorded here in the scriptures for us. He came to a point where he said, I'd almost slipped. And he's talking about a colossal slip where he packed in his relationship with God, when he turned his face to God, because as he looked around, he said, I was envious of the wicked. They seemed to have it all and to have it in abundance. They had what everyone would want. Folks, envy hits us in grade 5 when we want the person's bike, our friend's bike. It hits us in grade 12 when we want the other guy's girlfriend or something like that. In grade, we hit the 30s and we want someone's house. So we just have an apartment. We always can want more and more and more. And envy does that. And it makes us think that God can't be trusted because of what we are going through. It makes us feel bitterness. And envy will never make you feel better. It'll only make you feel bitter. And oftentimes it's bitter towards God, but it gets fleshed out because we are bitter towards other people, saying, oh, why did they get that? Or why did they get this? They don't deserve it. How come I don't get a break? How come I didn't win the lottery? How come I didn't get this? Why do they get to get a new car every 18 months? And I got to drive my jalopy. It's very easy to be filled with envy. What we have to do is to watch out for what envy can do. And as we've been working through Psalm 73, we discover this, that envy will divert the focus of your life. Think about that. Could it be that you're off track right now because of envy? Because you often will think, if I can touch it, if I can own it, if I can play with it or spend it, then I will be happy. Likely you've seen the bumper sticker like I have. It says, the one who has the most toys in the end wins. That's not true. It's not true. Folks, I've taken an awful lot of funerals. I've buried a lot of people. And never yet have I seen a U-Haul follow the hearse to the grave. Hasn't happened. Never will happen because it's pointless. And all the things that we hold on to, that we clutch onto, we have to let go. What is it that you're envying? How has it distorted the focus of your life? Because envy will also cause you to to want to give up your faith, but it'll steal it away from you. I want to read from verse 14, Psalm 73. And he says this, he felt that God owed him an explanation for what he was going through. He said, all day long, I've been stricken and rebuked every morning. My goodness, what was it that he had been stricken with? He said, I've kept my heart clean and washed my hands in innocence. He was looking for God to give him an explanation why he was going through what he was going through. And folks, sometimes God will explain. He will make it clear. But other times he'll say, my son, my daughter, I want you to simply trust me. You know, the other day at our staff meeting at the church that I pastor, we were talking about this subject. And one person said, you know what I envy right now? I just desperately want to get away and sit on a beach for 4 or 5 days. But for various reasons, that person was not able to do it and likely won't be able to for a while. And she'd heard, and we had heard of somebody else who was on the beach. And we were all kind of laughing and saying, oh, if I could only be there. So what was the solution? Because all of us envy. We long for something like that. To say, I just want the escape to get away. It's discovering this, that God is more than enough. He's really more than enough. And tomorrow we're going to get to the final section in the Psalm 73. And all of a sudden, the psalmist wakes up. He says, oh my goodness, I've almost given up my faith until I got a glimpse of eternity and what really lasts. And folks, I don't know what your thoughts are in eternity, but I want you to know this. You don't have to be afraid of eternity if you're trusting in Christ as your Savior. Why not reach out to him today and say, Lord, deliver me of envy, but fill me with your presence. I want to follow you. He always will hear that prayer and cry for help. Thanks for listening. Well, all this week, our gift to you is Pat Robertson's last book before he passed away, called The Power of the Holy Spirit. Remember at the beginning, I talked about Psalm 23, he restores my soul. That's the work of the Holy Spirit in drawing us into that connection with God. To the first 20 people who write into the perspective.tv and request this book, we will send you free of charge Pat's amazing book. He's the one that founded the 700 Club. His ministry has touched literally millions of people around the world. So write to us and request his book. You'll enjoy it. I know you'll enjoy it. I've enjoyed it. It's riveting. It's a great read. But you know, we think about restoring our soul. What if we're not sure if our soul is right with God? Well, in the perspective, our passion is to help people have that soul connection with God. And that's why we've made available all summer this little book called Just Start. Write to us. It's free of charge. We want to send it to you. It'll help you to begin your relationship with God. It answers questions about what does it mean to know God personally. But we can pray right now, and I invite you to pray with me a simple prayer that when prayed from your heart to God, he's promised to hear. You can say, Lord Jesus, I'm opening up my heart to you today. Will you be my Savior and my Lord and my friend? And if you've prayed that prayer, write to me at theperspective.tv. Thanks for watching.